30-24 overtime victory for the Kansas City Chiefs, who moved to 8-0. But if you also want to call in now and just wait on the line, and they'll blame you. You can just wait on hold for about 15 to 20 minutes, and then we will be sure to get to your call. I just don't want to keep people waiting on the line so long, not knowing when they're going to be on the air. Well, I'll tell you right now, about 20 minutes from now, we'll be taking some of those phone calls. So if you want to wait, totally fine. If you want to wait on the line right now, that's fine as well. But let's dive right into it. I'm not sure what your confidence level was going into tonight. For me, it was sky high. I'll be honest with you. I'll call myself out. I thought this morning there was virtually no chance that Baker Mayfield, with the weapons that he had healthy, could go toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes and really toe-to-toe with Steve Spagnuolo's defense. I thought there was no chance in hell that he was going to be able to keep up with Patrick Mahomes and facing a Steve Spagnuolo-led defense. Not with Mike Evans out. Not with Chris Godwin out. Not with the conditions. It was rainy. It was wet. Just was not a good night for a quarterback. But that just seemed to not be the case for Patrick Mahomes and Baker Mayfield. Right, Baker Mayfield tonight, he wasn't spectacular, but he was good enough. And I can tell you right now, I bet you he would like a word with Todd Bowles, who decided to kick the PAT with 30 seconds to go instead of going for the kill shot against the two-time defending Super Bowl champions in their own house. Right? You know the old saying in sports, and in a specific spot like that, when you're at home, play for the tie. When you're on the road, go for the kill. Be aggressive. You just went 70, 75 yards against a tired Chiefs defense. Why kick the PAT? Now, you could be listening wherever you are and saying, well, it worked out because they went to overtime. Now, I look at it this way. You go for two, I think you get it. I mean, the Chiefs secondary really didn't have an answer for Cade Otton tonight. They didn't really have an answer on that final drive for Sterling Shepard. I mean, Josh Williams and Chris Rowland Wallace getting picked on. I mean, tonight, this felt like it was just handed to Tampa Bay at the very end. You've got that opportunity to go up by one, and even though Kansas City's got 3 timeouts in 27 seconds, we've seen them do it in 14 seconds less. Right? They still were going to have that opportunity if you were tied. Now, maybe I am hyper-fixating on this a little bit too much because they went to overtime. But even going into overtime, you risk losing the coin toss, which they did. And Patrick Mahomes emphatically says, we want the ball. And they just drive down with ease. First play, 11 yards for Kareem Hunt. Travis Kelce finds the soft spot in the zone a couple of times. DeAndre Hopkins, what a night for him. I mean, if you thought that DeAndre Hopkins was going to be a good piece for Kansas City, you're probably in the majority of what a lot of Chiefs fans thought. He's already exceeded my expectations 2 games in. That guy just doesn't drop the football. He doesn't. The only time he did a bad thing tonight, and it was on him and Patrick Mahomes, it was that final drive of regulation. They just weren't synced up. They weren't on the same page because all night long, they were synced up. They were on the same page. But fortunately, Antoine Winfield just couldn't haul in that interception because that would have likely set up a game-winning field goal for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Todd Bowles isn't getting criticized tonight. But overall, what you've heard me say in these first 7 games of the season, you just win. It doesn't matter how you win, you just win. And as I'm sitting here in the studio, Dylan Michaels is sitting here, Kyle Collier's sitting here, we're watching the game up there. You know, you shouldn't be that anxious, that nervous about a regular season game because the Chiefs have played far more thrilling postseason games. A loss tonight would have not been the end of the world. It was an NFC opponent. And hey, you're undefeated. The Lions lost to Tampa Bay earlier this year, and they lost to Tampa Bay at home as well. But that was also a healthier Tampa Bay team. So I wouldn't have faulted you if you would have picked up the phone tonight and said a loss would have really pissed me off, because that's not a Tampa Bay team that should be hanging around. They were a 9-point underdog for a reason. They just weren't healthy. But tonight, the offense, a couple of times, found a way to put together the drive. They were down 17-10, not a lot of momentum. Offense drives down the field. Patrick Mahomes scares everybody in the KC area, whether you're on the Kansas side or the Missouri side, or you're a Chiefs fan. I know we got a couple on the East Coast that listen. If you're watching the game from wherever, you had a heart attack, because that reaction that Mahomes had on the game-tying drive didn't look good. The last time I remember him looking like that, hands on the helmet, down in a heap, needing help off the field, it was when he had that kneecap injury in Mile High against the Broncos. That's the last time I can remember him having that type of reaction. And then he goes into the medical tent, and whatever happened in there, he comes out not even with a limp. Gets the ball back. What does he do? Well, as only Patrick Mahomes can, he leads a go-ahead drive. Now, his defense couldn't put the hammer down 2 times in a row, because I will say this. The defense put the hammer down right after that go-ahead touchdown, but then the offense gained -1 yards on their next drive. So you got to give the ball back to Baker, and the Bucs go down and tie the game. And if I was a Buccaneers fan, I'm livid right now. I would have not been disappointed whatsoever. And hindsight's 20/20, but hear me out. I would have not been disappointed whatsoever if they failed the 2-point conversion. Hey, we drove down the length of the field. That Chiefs defense is tired. I think this is our best shot to win the game, because I don't see us beating Patrick Mahomes in overtime. Not at Arrowhead. And think about the likelihood of driving against this Chiefs defense, even though they had an off night, back-to-back times for a game-winning touchdown. Like, that's your opportunity. That's your chance. And the Buccaneers couldn't get it done. And then I talk about the drive, right? They had 2 of them there in regulation. But then I go to this overtime drive. 11-yard catch and run for Kareem Hunt. 5-yard run for Kareem Hunt. 7-yard reception for Travis Kelce. 4-yard run for Kareem Hunt. 15-yard catch and run for DeAndre Hopkins. 2-yard run for Patrick Mahomes. 15-yard catch and run for Travis Kelce. 5-yard run for Kareem Hunt. 4-yard catch by Travis Kelce. 2-yard walk-off touchdown for Kareem Hunt. That's surgical. That's what Super Bowl winning teams do. Hey, maybe it's not been the best night. Conditions are bad. Game on the line. This is what we have in our bag. This is what we have in store. And this Chiefs team, I will say this. I think the Chiefs offense just had their best performance of the season. That's just one man's opinion. And I'm not saying that because it was a season-high 30 points. I thought it was the efficiency. I thought it was getting Travis Kelce involved. I thought it was getting DeAndre Hopkins involved. I thought it was the rushing total for Kareem Hunt. I thought it was the efficiency of Patrick Mahomes, who, by the way, 34-44, 77.3% completion percentage, 291 through the air, 3 touchdowns, no pick, a quarterback rating of 116.8. By far and away, his best outing of the season. Kareem Hunt, 27 carries for 106 and the touchdown. At this point in time, I'll say this. If you are a betting man or woman, just put money on anytime touchdown for Kareem Hunt. He gets the ball a lot in the red zone. Actually, let me walk that back. He gets the ball a lot, period. After that Chargers game, which was his season debut, 27 carries, 22 carries, 21 carries, 27 carries. I don't know what that workload is going to look like when Isaiah Pacheco comes back, but Kareem Hunt is somebody that can take on that workload, and better yet, he doesn't fumble. And it's hard to tackle him. And now you start to fantasize a little bit about Isaiah Pacheco coming back. The weather gets colder. Right now in Kansas City, it's still oddly warm on November 4th. But I'm talking December. Trying to tackle those two guys. Count me in as somebody that would never want to do that. As the average human, the average Joe, I think it would kill me to try to stand in front of Kareem Hunt or Isaiah Pacheco in cold weather and try to bring them down. Now, that was in the ground game. You want to know what Travis Kelce's stat line was tonight? And I get it. The fumble was not good. That was a drive that could have set up the Chiefs for 3. You go up 13-7 going into the break, give your defense a little bit of rest, and you feel good. But he fumbles. Buccaneers stay close, and they've got that opening drive touchdown in the second half. Travis Kelce got 16 targets tonight. 16. And he went 14 for 100. Now, if you thought Travis Kelce was entering the final year of his career, or he's barely moving anymore, he's a fantasy football letdown. Now, 14 for 100 is pretty damn good. DeAndre Hopkins, I know some people out there thought he was washed up. He's 32. This is not 2019 DeAndre Hopkins. 8 for 86, 2 touchdowns. 9 targets. That one incompletion was what I brought up on that final drive of regulation where Patrick Mahomes and DeAndre Hopkins were not synced up. D-Hop didn't know he was throwing it that early. Patrick Mahomes thought he was on the same page. Thankfully, it didn't cost them anything. But when you throw the ball in DeAndre Hopkins' direction, he catches it. It doesn't matter if he's got a foot of separation, an inch of separation, he brings it in. And we heard Andy Reid say earlier in the week, his workload's going to be increased. Now, we're going to expect more from him. The snap count is going to go up. And boy, did it. And he did a lot with those snaps. And we talked about it last Sunday against the Raiders. Hey, he only played 20-some snaps. He made the most of them. He only had 2 catches in the game, but those were 2 big catches. Tonight, every single reception that he had, in my opinion, or maybe 7 of 8, were big-time plays for this Chiefs offense. I mean, it was the efficiency. Patrick Mahomes was perfect on third down. Perfect. And I'm not trying to use that to be hyperbolic. I'm not trying to exaggerate here. He was 11 for 11 on third down. The Chiefs on the night were 12 of 18 on third down. They were 1 of 1 on fourth. 384 yards of total offense. They ran for over 120, threw for over 260. They did have the 1 turnover, but it didn't cost them any points. They did have a rough night with the offensive line. Patrick Mahomes was sacked, I believe, 4 times in this game. But 30 points is 30 points, even if it took overtime to do it. And maybe you listen in the car right now. Maybe you're listening in the garage. You have the radio on. Maybe you're listening in your living room. I don't know. Wherever you may be listening. Maybe you're saying to yourself, man, Jack never really gets too negative. Doesn't point out too many flaws. Believe me, I will. But right now, when this team is 8-0, after all the adversity they've faced, it's hard not to feel great. You got Denver coming in next Sunday, a Denver team that lost by 31 to Baltimore. I don't want to get ahead of myself. I don't want to put the cart before the horse. But you've got a damn good opportunity to be 9-0 going into Buffalo on November 17th in a game that very well may decide the number 1 seed in the AFC. Chiefs get it done 30-24 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, an overtime win for Patrick Mahomes, by far and away his most complete game of the season, and he did so battling that ankle injury. He showed up on the injury report earlier in the week with that ankle problem. He re-aggravated it on a non-contact play, a passing touchdown to Samaje Perine, but then came back in and had 3 touchdown drives. Or 2, I guess I should say, because that one I can't count on the play that he got hurt. So 2 touchdown drives, including that overtime drive to win the game. I mean, 8-0 is 8-0. We've seen so many times this season a good team, hell, a great team, lose to an inferior one. And right now, everybody else on their schedule is technically an inferior team. Even if you hear the national media talking about, well, the Lions are better, Buffalo's better, Baltimore's better. By record, they're inferior. Denver's coming in on Sunday as an inferior team. And yes, the Chiefs do play around with their food. It frustrates the hell out of everybody. But winning in this league is hard. And it is 10:44 p.m. on November 4th, 2024. We are a month and 21 days away from a full calendar year since the last Chiefs loss. You know how hard that is to do? That's borderline impossible. To go from that game, Christmas Day against the Raiders, where Aiden O'Connell didn't complete a pass in the second half, to lose it that way, then to win out the rest of the year and open up this year with 8 consecutive wins. And oh, by the way, it's not like they are firing on all cylinders, right? They've had to go out there and make some moves to make up for injuries. I mean, I could write down a list right now and just show it to the screen of the key guys that have went down. First play of the damn preseason, Hollywood Brown goes down. The first play. We talk about preseason football, about how nerve-wracking it is because when the starters are out there, you're not worried about how they look. You're just hoping they get through healthy. The first actual football play in preseason, Hollywood Brown goes down. And he misses the entire regular season. You're hoping to get him back for the postseason. Week 2, Isaiah Pacheco goes down. Lower leg injury. Still not playing right now, though they're hopeful to get him back. Charles Omenihu got hurt in the AFC Championship game, so you begin the year with him out, your starting edge rusher. All right, Week 4, September 29th. Rashee Rice tears his knee. September 29th. Over a month ago now. The Chiefs are 4-0 since that game. Patrick Mahomes, going into tonight, had more interceptions than touchdowns. Thankfully, that is no longer the case. That's more adversity you're dealing with. Oh, I forgot. On October 20th, your number 2 cornerback, Jalen Watson, goes down with a significant injury. And even though Jared Wiley isn't a premier player in this offense, it kind of just has fit this theme of the season of dealing with injuries. He gets hurt in practice the other day. And even though he's the number 3 tight end, who has to make a play tonight at the end of regulation? Peyton Hendershot. Peyton Hendershot has to be the number 3 tight end now. It's just next guy up mentality. It's what makes them so good. It's what's made them so good for years under Andy Reid. One player doesn't dictate everything. Even Patrick Mahomes, right? And I think everybody had a heart attack tonight. But I point to some situations in the past. Not that Patrick Mahomes going down wouldn't impact the team. Of course, we all know he's the one guy you cannot afford to lose. But we've even seen the Andy Reid era. Like Matt Moore come into a game and win and take Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers on Sunday Night Football to the brink. We've seen Nick Foles come in for Alex Smith before and win football games. We've seen Chase Daniel come in before and win football games. Like, it's just what this team does. They overcome a lot of adversity. And tonight, whether you want to say there was adversity or not, the Chiefs got it done once again. And it's just what the rest of the NFL has to come to terms with. That with the game on the line, the Chiefs are going to make the play. Their opponent is not. We're going to take our first break of the show. When we come back, we're going to get to some callers. We got 4 on the line right now. Some of you wanted to wait around until our phone caller segment. If you are waiting around for that, you can call in now at 913-381-810. That's 913-381-810. Chiefs get it done against Tampa Bay in overtime tonight, 30-24. When we come back, we'll get your thoughts right here on the Red and Gold Postgame Show on Sports Radio 810 WHB. walk-off touchdown was the play of the game, brought to you by Central Bank of the Midwest. And you are tuned in to the Red and Gold Postgame Show, brought to you by Boda Box Wine. Kick your tailgate party up a notch this football season with Boda Box, the ultimate tailgate wine. Boda Box, this is how we Boda. Please drink responsibly. Sponsored by Boda Box Vineyards, Manteca, California. As promised, the second segment of our show is always going to be dedicated to you, the listener. For those that want to give us your thoughts, your opinions, I want to make sure you know when you're going on the air. In the past, wasn't the best on it. We do the monologue and keep you waiting a little bit too long. Always know that after our first break, that next segment is going to be dedicated to you, the listener. If you're still thinking about calling in, call into our phone line at 913-381-0810. That's 913-381-0810. Let's hop on the phone lines and hear from Gary. Gary, you're on the Red and Gold Postgame Show, my man.
Well, after watching that game tonight, I think I might have to go see my cardiologist in the morning. But I can't say anything anymore. This team is just gritty. That's the best word to describe this team. They're never out of anything. They're always there. They're gritty. Just the only word I can use to describe this football team tonight. There were a couple of things that, in hindsight, you wish they would have changed some things, but they didn't. But gritty was just the word to describe it. That's outstanding job tonight, especially Mahomes, probably statistically best game of the year, and no INTs from Patrick Mahomes tonight. Mm-hmm. He didn't turn the ball over. And another positive note, third consecutive game without a penalty on Jawan Taylor. I think that after the touchdown that got taken off the board against New Orleans, I saw Andy on the sideline shaking his play sheet after that happened. I think there was a come-to-Jesus meeting with Jawan Taylor after that, because something had to have changed in him to go from that to this. But, hey, Mahomes didn't throw an INT tonight. Jawan Taylor, third consecutive game without a penalty. I think we're living in an alternate universe, but, hey, it's gritty. Let's just enjoy it. I'll hang up and listen. Great show, guys.
Absolutely. Appreciate the call, Gary. And, yeah, I mean, you got to give credit to Jawan Taylor. He was somebody that, from the get-go last year, just constantly penalized. And I can say this year I haven't really thought a lot about Jawan Taylor, and I mean that in the best possible way. I don't want to be thinking about the offensive linemen. Unless they're out there making a pancake block, they're bowling over somebody, that's when I love to talk about an offensive lineman. But when I'm not talking about them, they're doing their job. When they're not getting flagged, I know there was that, play right before the Kareem Hunt walk-in touchdown where it was the false start or not the false start. It takes you all the way back to week 1 against the Lions when he was constantly penalized for that. I think I saw Jeff Schwartz on Twitter talk about that, saying in real time, it's so close, it's almost never called. Right? But Jawan Taylor, props to him. Right? He's had a clean game, and Patrick Mahomes, a clean game tonight. Hard not to be impressed with those two and their performances in a 30-24 win. Back to the phone lines. Let's hear from Kyle. Kyle, what's on your mind?
Hey, thanks for taking my call. And I got a few things I would like to say. First one, I'm going to throw this out there, and I know a lot of people are going to probably disagree with me, but I think Patrick Mahomes should be back in consideration for MVP. I know you got Jared Goff is playing well, Sam Darnold, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. Those are good candidates, but I think Mahomes should be in the top 5. After this performance, because he has carried this team. His numbers are not looking great. I mean, haven't looked great, but we're 8-0 because of our defense. And without 15, I think our record would be a lot different. So that's my first thought, and I want to hear your thoughts after I get after this call. My second thought is this. I knew we would have a game where we would have to rely on our offense to win the game for us because our defense is playing lights out, and we had to rely. I remember a few years ago when Mahomes first entered and was first drafted by the Chiefs, we had that high-powering offense, style points, but we just didn't have a defense. And and I remember there was a game where we had to rely on our defense because there was going to be a game where our defense needed to pick it up. And tonight was a good example of that, where our offense picked up our defense tonight. I mean, our defense is great. I'm not saying anything bad about our defense at all. I'm just saying that there's going to be games where, the offense is going to have to pick up the defense, even though our defense is great. So that's my second point. And the offense did its job tonight. Third point is, I think Travis Kelce, there is nothing wrong with Kelce. I think there was just, we had wide receivers that there was no need. I mean, when Rashee Rice was with us, we were throwing to Rashee Rice a lot because he was open because everybody was focused on Kelce. Now that we got D. Hopkins, which D. Hopkins had a fantastic game, now with D. Hopkins, now you're going to have, we have this guy to worry about now. So now all the defenders are putting their eyes on D. Hopkins, and now everybody's going away from Kelce, and Kelce's getting wide open. So and that's why I think when Juju gets back and when Brown gets back in December, hopefully, or the playoffs, and you're going to have Kelce. I'm saying you know what? I'm just going to say it. I think we're more dangerous than the Baltimore Ravens and the Buffalo Bills. I'll listen off the air, and thank you for taking my call.
Appreciate the phone call, Kyle. And yes, I do believe that this offense was firing tonight. They've got a lot of weapons to worry about. And I do promise that I'm going to give a little bit of a deeper look into that. And we will get to our phone calls, but I was just told in my ear we got DeAndre Hopkins at the podium. So real quickly, let's hear from him.
Your first experience in a Chiefs uniform at Arrowhead Stadium, kind of give us a summarization.
A blessing. I'm grateful to be here. So I'm still taking it in. I believe in God. Prayer, manifestation. So just taking it in, man.
It seemed like the social media fans really enjoyed whenever you Titan celebrations. What was that?
It's one of my favorite movies. So I knew if I got in the end zone, I was gonna hate to remember the Titans.
All right, that was short and sweet from DeAndre Hopkins. Had 2 touchdowns tonight, 8 catches in only his second game as a Kansas City Chief. We're going to go back to the phone lines here and hear from Rodney. Rodney, you're on the Red and Gold Postgame Show.
Thank you for taking my call. First of all, I love DeAndre Hopkins' interview. My first question is it too early to re-sign him, to extend him? I don't know if it's too early for that, but I will hope Beach looking to extending him. Just for at least one more year. But to me, I looked at this game as, this was a great game. As I look at it as a football junkie, as someone who plays football, this is what happens when a championship team plays somebody who gives A-plus effort. The numbers are out the window. The rankings are out the window. None of that stuff matters. This is A-plus effort. Like this is Tampa Bay played their Super Bowl game.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to be the one to say, "I'll be the one who knocked off the undefeated Chiefs." And Baker gave it his all. I gave it to him. I tipped my cap off to Baker. He found his home. Cleveland messed up, but that's neither here or there. But he found his home, and he played well. He played very, very well. So to me, this is what A-plus effort looks like. And I hope they be prepared for the Broncos to try to do the same thing. I'm pretty sure all of the AFC was watching this game. I'm pretty sure Sean Payton is going to watch this game again first thing in the morning, and he's going to try to figure something out. But at the end of the day, I think Andy Reid can't hide the fact that Kareem Hunt is going to get at least 20 carries. He's going to get his money out of Kareem Hunt one way or another. But when Isaiah Pacheco come back, that's a 3-headed monster, and I haven't even added in Samaje Perine.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think nobody want to deal with Kareem Hunt, Carson Steele, and Isaiah Pacheco in that backfield, especially running that inside gap scheme. Nobody, they don't want to deal with that because these guys are going to be fresh. But I know a lot of people will sit back and say, well, the offensive line didn't play good. Well, those guys get paid too. Villa Veda lead their team in tackles. That should say a lot. Those guys get paid too. So, hey, that was just an A-plus effort, and this is what it looks like. Brady had to go through it. Mahomes is no longer an elite quarterback. This is first ballot Hall of Famer. This is the effort you're going to face now. You have entered into first ballot Hall of Fame status. So you're going to get A-plus effort even from a losing team. It doesn't matter. You're going to get A-plus effort game in and game out. So I think Chiefs Kingdom has to get used to it. The numbers doesn't matter no more when teams play against the Chiefs. It's just hell on wheels. So, and hey, we got to be prepared for the ride. So I would just want to give it up to it, but I bet you Joshua Uche, I think Spags is kicking himself not having Joshua Uche on the Bucs last drive. Because Malik Herring is good, but they needed speed. Baker was standing in that pocket too long. And I think it's because he's only been there for a couple of days. I think next week is going to be a whole different story for him. I wanted to hear your thoughts on that. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it, Rodney. Always appreciate your in-depth insight that you give us right here on the Red and Gold Postgame Show. I do think we're going to see an increase in snap count for Joshua Uche going into next week. I was, pleased with one of the reps that I saw. I want to say it was shortly before halftime. He was able to chase down somebody on a third down. You can see the speed. You can see the athleticism. And, on a drive like that, the final one in regulation for that defense, you need guys that can, give you multiple snaps out there in a row, because what's Tampa Bay going to be doing? Well, they're in their 2-minute offense. It's going to be no huddle at times. They're going to be getting up to the line. They're going to be snapping the ball quickly, and you can't have guys that get gassed quickly. Now, I think this is a conditioned Chiefs defense. They are an athletic group, and Joshua Uche absolutely makes that team better, but it's also going to take him maybe a game or two to really get comfortable with everything the Chiefs are throwing at him. But the hope is, once you get to December, once you get to January, that's a guy you can count on to pin his ears back on a third down and go and blitz the quarterback, right? Because he's a speed rusher, right? He kind of has that look of D Ford, not just because of the number, and I hope I'm not going to see any offsides play from Joshua Uche, but he lines up like him, right? Uses speed. We saw it in New England. I expect to see a lot more of Joshua Uche moving forward, and maybe Spags does regret not having him out there, But that was a bad drive. That was a bad drive for that defense in the final 2 to 3 minutes of that game. Inexcusable from some guys in the secondary, and we certainly will be talking about that a little bit later on in the show. Back to the phone lines. Let's hear from Ron. Ron, what's on your mind, my man?
Yo. Hey, man, I'm just as excited as everybody else out here in KC. Man, the addition of D-Hop, crazy. The way that it's opened up Kelsey, crazy. Ain't nobody talking about this a lot, but I love the way we running the ball. I think I did hear somebody say that earlier, 20 times, Kareem getting it 20 times. I love the way we ain't falling in love with the pass. We did for a second there. I think Mahomes kind of got cold there for a second, but, they got the run back going and opened it back up a little bit. Excited to see what it looks like with Juju coming in and all the pieces getting fully healthy. I've got a question as well. Do you think that they will go for a cornerback? Because that's one thing that I kind of think might scare me a little bit against some of the better passing teams. So I'm curious to hear if you think they actually are going to do something before tomorrow. And as far as that, do you feel like we will go undefeated? And if not, who do you think we'll lose to if we do lose? I kind of think we will. I think Buffalo and maybe Pittsburgh at the end scare me a little bit because of those D-line, and our O-line is not – it's serviceable, but and Pat is tricky out there, but that D-line is crazy. Highsmith and Watt, man, and they real nasty over there in Pittsburgh. So I kind of feel like it's Buffalo and Pittsburgh, but I wouldn't be surprised if we go undefeated. But other than that, man, it's a lovely time to be a Chiefs fan, and I'll listen off the air. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Love the phone call and the energy there from Ron. So I'll answer your first question there because I know a negative part of tonight's game was some of the play in the secondary. Look, it's nice to rely on Trent McDuffie. It's nice to rely on some of those safeties like Justin Reed and Brian Cook. I have not been impressed in the 2.5 games without Jalen Watson. Right? I know Chris Rowland-Wallace had that interception in San Francisco. I was there in person. That was a great game all the way around by the defense. I cannot get too upset with what the defense did in San Francisco. But I was not pleased with what I saw in Vegas. I was not pleased with what I saw tonight. And you're exactly right, Ron. They got Buffalo in 2 weeks. And you know what Josh Allen's going to do? Something that Josh Allen did, I think it was 2 years ago. Buffalo came to Kansas City, and they went right at the young cornerbacks, which at the time was Joshua Williams and Jalen Watson. He just constantly went in their way. Now, they had Stephon Diggs. It's a little bit more of a depleted wide receiver room for Buffalo, but they're still making it work. So if they are going to make a move tomorrow, I would hope it's going to be for a number 2 cornerback. You've been hearing the rumors of Marshawn Lattimore in New Orleans. The Saints are clearly out of it at this point. They've lost 7 in a row. They fired their head coach. They can make it work, man. That's something they need badly. I don't know if Joshua Williams or Najee Johnson or Chris Rowland-Wallace is going to be the answer at the number 2 cornerback position come January, because that's the most important thing right now. Now, the second part of your question was, do they go undefeated? I would love to say yes, but I'm going to say no, because it's really hard on a 17-game schedule to go undefeated, and I can look at a handful of games right now that the Chiefs could absolutely lose, and that's not even factoring in some of those weird games. As I opened up the show with, how many of you woke up this morning and said, well, I could see this game going into overtime? None of you did. That's the answer. None of you said this was going to go into overtime. Not with the injuries that Baker Mayfield and Tampa Bay had. There is no way you believe tonight was going to go into overtime. So does that happen against the Chargers on December 8th? Does that happen against Houston 4 days before Christmas? Right? Does that happen against Cleveland? They beat Baltimore, and they followed it up with a stinker against the Chargers. But I can pinpoint some games right now that are going to be very difficult to win. Buffalo and Orchard Park here in 2 weeks. Or 3 weeks, or actually it is 2 weeks, excuse me. That's going to be an incredibly tough game to win, and probably a game the Chiefs will not be favored in. And if they are, it might be by a point or two. I mean, that game in Houston or against Houston at home, that's going to be tough. C.J. Stroud with that offense. I know they got a bad offensive line, but it's a good quarterback you're going up against. Pittsburgh on the road. They look great this year with a reinvented Russell Wilson and a great receiving core. They feel like the Pittsburgh of old. Just rough and tough, blue-collar team. They push you around. Denver and Mile High at the end of the year might be a little bit tough. So right now, I think I would say no. I don't see them going undefeated. All right, last phone call we're going to get to tonight comes from Dan. Dan, what's going on?
Hey, Jack, how you doing? Yeah, great win by the Chiefs. Yeah, they look pretty good. I really like the offense, even though on the first play, Xavier Worthy beat him and just forgot to get his feet out of bounds. Even though, the offense really did good, Yeah, Kareem Hunt with 106 yards and Kelsey, even though he had that fumble, it was unfortunate, but 100 yards, hey, that's pretty good. And the D-line did just enough to get more pressure on Mayfield. And you're right, the secondary, if we could get Marcus Laraber, that would be great. And, I didn't expect the game to go to overtime, Jack. They were out of Evans and didn't have Chris Godwin, but still a great win. I'm glad I forgot to tell you this, Jack. I'm glad you enjoyed yourself out in San Francisco. Did you go to any restaurants? Take care of yourself. Let's take care of the Broncos. I'll be at the game next week. Take care.
Awesome. Love to hear it, Dan. Hope you're tailgating. Hope you're having a good time. I did go to a lot of restaurants out there in San Francisco. Love the food down there. Love the atmosphere. It was great, great weather. I'm a fan of that fall weather because we sure as hell ain't getting it right now in Kansas City. So hopefully that colder weather starts to come in because I need the football weather. It's getting too late in the season to still be having 60 degrees out there and 70 degrees. I believe we do have one more interview to play here before we go to break or after break. Dylan's telling me after break. I think we have Kareem Hunt on the field after his walk-off touchdown against Tampa Bay. Also going to hear from Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. A little bit later on, we will get Patrick Mahomes at the podium and Andy Reid at the podium. But let's take a quick break. You are listening to the Red and Gold Postgame Show on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Enjoy a treat and give to a great cause. The 87 Concrete, crafted by Travis Kelce himself, consists of vanilla frozen custard, Oreo cookie dough, and cream caramel. A portion of the proceeds go to support Travis Kelce's 87 and Running Foundation. Top your day with a smile at Andy's. And you are tuned into the Red and Gold Postgame Show, brought to you by Boda Box Wine. Kick your tailgate party up a notch this football season with Boda Box, the ultimate tailgate wine. Boda Box, this is how we Boda. Please drink responsibly. Sponsored by Boda Box Vineyards, Manteca, California. We do have a pretty cool interview from down on the field. This is with Kareem Hunt, and just Kareem Hunt, correct, Dylan? And then after that, we'll have Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. So the first one we got here is Kareem Hunt on Westwood 1 with Kevin Harlan after the game.
Well, Kareem Hunt is joining us live on the field. Kareem, it's Kevin Harlan along with Hall of Fame quarterback Kurt Warner. 106 yards on the ground. You had 90 yards rushing in the second half, and in overtime, you got stronger, it seemed, as the game was going on.
Yeah, most definitely, man. I had to catch a groove and get going. I actually switched out my cleats. It's kind of sliding a little bit, but my O-line did a great job of, feeling that same energy that I brought, and they brought it with me.
Kareem, just talk to me about being back here in Kansas City and what that means to you.
It means everything to me, man, especially being back where it all started. And honestly, it's like no place like this, man. And the culture here, the guys, the family, it's just a great organization, and, I love to be a part of it.
Well, and you come back and have a huge impact tonight. Another guy that just came here to Kansas City, DeAndre Hopkins, showed his value. What has he meant in just a few weeks that he's been here?
He's a big-time playmaker, and, defenses definitely have to keep an eye out on him. And, that's my locker mate, man. We talk all the time. He's a great dude. I know he's happy to be here, and I'm excited, to see what else he brings. He's just getting warmed up.
Last one for me. Why can this Chiefs team three-peat?
Honestly, because I feel like we still want it. They're still hungry. And we got to just keep battling. And, it's something nobody's ever done. And everybody in this organization knows that. And the team will want to be the first to ever do something like that.
Well, you've got 5 touchdowns in 5 games with the Chiefs. Keep it rolling. Stay healthy. You're 8-0, and you are on your way. We thank you for your time, Kareem.
Yes, thank you.
That was Kareem Hunt after the game on Westwood 1 with Kevin Harlan and Kurt Warner. Getting some great insight from Hunt, who had the game-winning walk-off touchdown in overtime. But more importantly, another 100-yard rushing game from Kareem Hunt. When the Chiefs brought him in, if you would have thought that he already would have had 2 100-yard rushing efforts 8 games into the year, I would be asking you for a lot of future bets. That's for sure. So the next one we're going to hear from is Patrick Mahomes and his post-game interview. Then a little bit later on, we'll hear from Mahomes at the podium as well as Andy Reid. But let's hear from Patrick Mahomes down on the field after the 30-24 victory over the Buccaneers.
Patrick, another one-score game, this one in overtime, another win for you guys. Just what was the difference? Take us through that slow, methodical game-winning drive.
Yeah, we got to running the football again. Obviously we were doing stuff good early in the game, but we couldn't finish drives, and Kareem took it on himself to get running again, and we were able to do it in the end. That's a great football team. Hold on one second.
You mentioned that Kareem Hunt had himself a night, but so did DeAndre Hopkins in just his second game with you guys. What did D-Hop show you tonight?
He showed me that he's going to win one-on-one. I have the confidence in him. I saw it on tape last week. I knew I was going to go back to him, and he's getting one-on-one matchups. We were favored over to Trav, and he's winning.
This entire building was holding its breath for a while. It looked like he got hurt. Just what happened?
Yeah, I rolled the ankle. I rolled it last week, and you roll it again, it never feels good. But as I got some time, it started feeling better, and got a short week, but we'll rehab it up, and I'll be ready to go next week.
All right, thanks, Patrick. Congratulations on the win.
I appreciate you always. Yeah.
And again, short and sweet from Patrick Mahomes after the game. Good news about his ankle. Didn't seem too concerned by it. Just rolled it. That was an ankle that he was dealing with all week long because he banged it up in that win against the Raiders. But when he came back in the game and had 2 long touchdown drives, wasn't limping around, was just completing pretty much every pass that he threw, except for ones where he wasn't synced up with his receivers. talked a little bit about DeAndre Hopkins, talked a little bit about Travis Kelce. We aren't going to hear from Travis Kelce. His interview went a little bit long, and since we're crunched on time, we'll just wait a little bit longer because we still have locker room audio to get to. We got Andy Reid to get to, and we've got more Patrick Mahomes to get to. So let's take a quick break. You are listening to the Red and Gold Postgame Show on Sports Radio 810 WHB. When we come back, we'll hear from Andy Reid right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Box defensive play of the game. Kick your tailgate party up a notch this football season with Bodabox, the ultimate tailgate wine. Bodabox is the premium boxed wine that wins with wine critics. Bodabox, this is how we Boda. Please drink responsibly. Sponsored by Bodabox Vineyards, Manteca, California. Well, as promised, we are going to hear from Andy Reid at the podium, as we do every single week on the Red and Gold Postgame Show. He had a lot to go over. He talked about Patrick Mahomes and the injury scare that he had in the third quarter. Going to talk about Kareem Hunt's performance in the run game again, a second 100-yard rushing performance for Hunt on the season. Also went over DeAndre Hopkins and his 8 catches for 2 touchdowns in this game. Also, the end of regulation. Todd Bowles not going for 2. Is that something that Andy Reid envisioned would happen, or did he expect that they were going to go into overtime and just hope to get the coin flip and go down and win the game as they did in real time? Also went over a little bit of that connection of Patrick Mahomes and DeAndre Hopkins on the deep ball, and Carson Wentz having to get hot at one point in the game. But let's kick things off on Andy Reid's opening statement following a 30-24 win over the Buccaneers in overtime.
All right. First of all, thank our fans for showing up in the rain and doing a great job for us. As far as the injuries go, McCole Hardman hurt his shoulder, was able to come back in. Likewise with Pat, hurt his ankle and was able to continue to play. George hurt his hip area, and then he also came back and played there until that last series. And then Wharton tweaked his right knee. So, but I think all in all, we came out relatively healthy. That was a hard-fought game. I thought both teams played really well, and they've got one of the top offenses in the National Football League, and even with the guys that are banged up a little bit, but Todd does a great job with that whole football team. So as far as some of the accolades, Pat was 33 of 43 for 287 yards, 3 TDs, so throwing the ball, which was great. DeAndre had a big day. He was 8 for 86 for 2 TDs, and then Kels had a big day, 13 receptions for 96 yards, and then Kareem went over 100 on that right at the end there. Good in the red zone. Nags had a phenomenal plan for these guys, and 11 for 17 on third downs, 4 for 4 in the red zone. So, we're getting better as we go. We shot ourselves in the foot a couple times, so we've got to take care of that. But we're headed in the right direction as we go through the season. Defensively, George Spags had another good game plan too. George had a big day, and then Drew Tranquil with the 7 tackles led our team in tackles. Chris is always in there wreaking havoc, and he did that likewise through double teams and everything else. He gets home, so great job there. Special teams wise, McCole did a nice job on the 30-yard return, and then Bucker and Ariza were solid today along with Winchester. So everybody had a piece of this. I keep on going on the defensive side. Our secondary, we got some young guys back there playing. 2 showed up today and had a big challenge stepping in and being a starter, and I thought he did a nice job for us. So again, all in all, a good team win, and now we move on quickly to Denver. So things move rapidly when you have a Monday night game. So keep them short, keep the questions short. Doggone it, Adam.
And that was Andy Reid's opening statement after an overtime 30-24 win over Tampa Bay. Now, what did Andy Reid think in that moment where Patrick Mahomes was down on the sideline? It was an ankle injury. He had his hands on his helmet. It did not look good. Was Andy worried what was going through his mind? Here were his thoughts.
Go ahead.
Andy,
yep.
As you got over Patrick, what was your sense of what it might be, and how quickly did your concerns get eased?
Yeah, well, we carried off. It wasn't too easy with it. That was I wasn't sure exactly where he was going to be with it, but he might have the loosest ankles in America. I mean, it's ridiculous how he can come back from those things. And then he's mentally tough on top of that. You know, I missed the offensive line. They had a big day today, too. I should have mentioned that. When you can run the ball like we did and just put the hammer down that second half, that big offensive line did a great job, and Andy Heck, deserves some of that right with him. Go ahead.
One of the things, Patrick, too, is just you've seen him overcome sometimes look like gruesome injuries. I mean, obviously that's testament to his heart on this, but I mean, is that what you think, too, when you see him? Like, he'll pull through if he can?
Yeah, no, he's a competitor. I told him I was going to take him out, and he probably wanted to fight me. So, he's a tough kid.
Andy, any similarities between this injury and the one he got in the playoffs a couple years ago?
I'll tell you tomorrow when I see how he wakes up with it. But right now, I'm sure he's going to be tender tomorrow. But I don't know how bad we're there.
That will be something we're going to have to evaluate all week long. It's a short week for the Chiefs, and what will Patrick Mahomes' ankle feel like? I'm not sure there should be any concern on him not playing on Sunday against Denver, but as Andy Reid brought up, might be a little bit tender tomorrow, and just kind of going throughout this week, dealing with that ankle injury, something he had to deal with last week as well after the Raiders game. Now, Patrick Mahomes was very efficient in this one. 34-44, 291 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, a quarterback rating over 116. But it was also a great night on the ground for Kareem Hunt. What did Andy Reid think of the rushing attack of Kansas City?
Really get behind the offensive line. What you thought the effectiveness of that was when we talked about that?
Yeah, I just, I didn't call enough runs in the first half. And so I told the offensive line that I was going to bank on them, and we need to get this thing started and get a little bit more balance in there in our attack. So they were game with it. And then, I thought they just stepped up and played great football. And a little bit more downhill than we were the first half. The first half, we started off downhill, and then we started going some of our outside zone stuff, and we're better off hitting it up in there.
It's funny watching this running game because it's not that similar to what Isaiah Pacheco was able to give you. I mean, there's times where Kareem Hunt gets stonewalled at the line of scrimmage, and it's a really hard-earned 100-some yards, but hey, 100 yards is 100 yards, and when you get that on the ground from one single running back, you're going to feel pretty damn good about that output. And, of course, the star of the game offensively had to be DeAndre Hopkins, and his 8 catches, 2 touchdowns in this one. What did Andy Reid think about that trust put into him just 2 games into his tenure in Kansas City?
With DeAndre Hopkins, particularly on that fourth quarter slant pass that he has, what's the call there? Is he just trusting him to win, I assume?
Yeah. So they have a little connection they can do there, depending on the look that they have. So those two, you talk about being on the same page. They were on the same page. They were off a little bit on the one where it was incomplete on the vertical look. We pat through it in the middle of the field there. But that one down there, they were spot on, and they have a little freedom on that.
What allowed DeAndre to be such an integral part of the offense so soon?
First of all, he's smart, and he's got a lot of experience. So we put more in for him this week, and Connor does a nice job with those guys of getting them ready and ready to go. So DeAndre is a veteran player that's a smart guy. So I put most of it right there.
Yeah, he's a veteran guy, but somebody that fits really well into this offense. I mean, you would think that DeAndre Hopkins has been with this team since training camp in St. Joe, but just a few weeks with the squad and already having performances like ones tonight. 2 touchdowns in this game, 9 targets, 8 catches. Just phenomenal stuff from DeAndre Hopkins. Now, was Andy Reid surprised that Todd Bowles did not go for 2 in the end? They had a touchdown to pull within 1 with 27 seconds to go, yet Todd Bowles elects to kick the extra point. He mentioned in the postgame that it was because of the wet conditions on the field. He just didn't have enough faith in it. They wanted to play for overtime. They did get to overtime, but the loss with the coin toss ended up being fatal for Tampa Bay as the Chiefs drive down and get the game-winning touchdown on the Kareem Hunt rush. But was Andy Reid surprised that Tampa Bay didn't try to go for the kill shot when they had the Chiefs in the crosshairs?
Coach Reid, were you surprised Todd Bowles didn't go for 2 there at the end of regulation?
No, but I'm glad he didn't.
Yeah, that's kind of the answer you would expect from Andy Reid. Not really caught off guard, but I think Andy Reid also had the answer that everybody was muttering to themselves in Kansas City or wherever you're watching. Thank God they didn't go for 2.
It's like taking a pitcher that is just absolutely dealing out of a baseball game. You make a decision that the opponent likes, it is never good for you.
Yeah, and it's crazy, too, that it wasn't even a thought. I mean, Baker had the passing touchdown, and I feel like a handful of times we can picture it, Dylan. The quarterback already holding up the 2, the coach holding up the 2 in response to that, and they stay on the field, and everybody feels anxious. Baker threw that touchdown pass and just ran to the sideline. There was not even a second guess about that. So Andy Reid said, hey, we expected them to try for overtime, and I'm glad they went that way because we, of course, found a way to win in overtime. Now, going back to that scary moment with Mahomes, the Chiefs did have to get Carson Wentz ready. What was going through Andy Reid's mind during that moment?
Andy, just to clarify, did you go get as far as to ask Carson, tell Carson to get ready?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, when he's in the tent, I can't go in the tent. So, I mean, it's like private sanctum there. So I just, I told Carson to be ready to go.
And how did Patrick convey that he was about to want to fight you?
Yeah, he didn't want to come out, you know. So.
Yeah, for a brief moment in time, you see Carson Wentz getting hot, and you see Patrick Mahomes heading to the tent. Me personally, I thought Carson Wentz was getting that next drive, and it was tied. We were going into the fourth quarter. So Carson Wentz would have had to orchestrate a game-winning drive. You probably weren't feeling good at that moment, but Patrick Mahomes went into the medical tent, and he came out a different person. He came out somebody that wasn't limping, and he came out a guy that would eventually go on to have 2 scoring drives to win 30-24 and push Kansas City to 8-0. One last comment from Andy Reid. He touched on the connection with Patrick Mahomes and DeAndre Hopkins with the deep ball.
The deep pass to DeAndre in traffic there. What do you thought about Patrick taking his risk?
Yeah, well, he's got a lot of trust in him. And you've seen DeAndre make those catches over his career. Get 2 great players thrown to each other. Sometimes great things happen. And so it's not the way we drew it up, but it was a good finish to it.
You got to have a lot of confidence to basically be flat-footed and just floated up there for a guy who wasn't on your roster 3 weeks ago and a guy who was in triple coverage. But what a pass, what a catch. It set up yet another score for Kansas City. I believe on that drive, that was the touchdown to D-Hop, his first as a Kansas City Chief, which we will be hearing from that audio a little bit later on in the show. But let's take another break here. You're listening to the Red and Gold Postgame Show, brought to you by Boda Box Wine. Kick your tailgate party up a notch this football season with Boda Box, the ultimate tailgate wine. Boda Box is the premium boxed wine that wins with wine critics. Boda Box, this is how we Boda. Please drink responsibly. Sponsored by Boda Box Vineyards, Manteca, California. When we come back, you just heard from Andy Reid. Now we're going to hear from the quarterback of the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. You're listening to Sports Radio 810 WHB. Brought to you by Shamrock Roofing and Construction. You can make the right call as well by visiting shamrockroofer.com. Shamrock Roofing and Construction, one call does it all. Well, now let's hear from the quarterback of the Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, who had his best individual performance of the season. Also did so on a bad ankle, at least for the fourth quarter and overtime. He did touch on that a little bit. He talked about the connection between him and DeAndre Hopkins, and like Andy Reid, the performance of Kareem Hunt, the rushing production he was able to give Kansas City in this game. Also talked about Travis Kelce, his 14-catch, 100-yard performance, and the, let's just call them bad conditions at Arrowhead Stadium. Lots of rain. It was pretty wet. That eventually led to the decision of Todd Bowles to kick the extra point right before overtime instead of go for the kill shot with a 2-point conversion after having a touchdown with 27 seconds to go. But Patrick Mahomes opened up his press conference talking about the injury that he had in the third quarter on his touchdown pass to Samaje Perine.
Take us through the injury itself and when you were getting up.
Yeah, no, I was obviously running for the goal line. Was kind of committed to running the football, and at the last second saw Samaje, and so kind of awkwardly rolled the ankle a little bit. Definitely scary. I think it hurt more just because it's the same ankle I rolled last week. So it scared me a little bit, but once I kind of took my breath and kind of calmed down a little bit, ended up being not too bad. We were able to go in there, kind of get the respat, and go back on the football field.
Were you about feel a little better just as you got about halfway across the field when you were on your own?
Yeah, I was trying to run off the field, and they were telling me not to. It's just kind of the football mentality is to get off the field, and we just scored a touchdown. And they told me to just take it slow, and as I started walking, I started feeling better. And obviously, after I get the respat, get that comfortability back, and then took a few drops and felt good.
Just the last thing with Andy said that he actually told you were coming out. And that,
yeah, I thought he was joking. He said it, and I was like, come on, like we're not doing this again. He trusts me, and once the doctors checked it out, and I was able to get back and do the drops again, he let me get back on the field.
Any similarities between this injury and the one in the playoffs a couple years ago?
No, I think just because the one in the playoffs a couple years ago was a little bit how I got tackled. It got stuck, and it hurt a lot more. I could move. I could still have mobility in my ankle, and I still did after this game. And so obviously you'll sleep, probably get a little swelling tomorrow, but a short week. But you go in there and take care of it and be prepared to play next week.
You knew pretty quick it wasn't anything like serious sickness.
Yeah, you feel the pain, and that scares you because obviously I've dealt with ankles before, but just kind of laid there, and as time kind of went on, the pain subsided. I don't know the word. Subsided. Yeah, that's a big word for me. But it did, and so I just kind of got back to it and got back moving again, and felt comfortable going out there.
Yeah, so good news from Patrick Mahomes, as we also got good news from Andy Reid. Andy Reid was the one to tell him, you're coming out of the game, we're going with Carson, and Patrick Mahomes thought it was a joke. We're not doing this again. I'm going back in the game, and Chiefs fans can be very fortunate that he did come back in the game because he just orchestrated the offense perfectly, with the exception of one drive, and I think that was more so play calling to make sure they took care of the football and try to win the game with their defense. Defense couldn't do it for really the first time all year, which then forced overtime, so Patrick Mahomes gets the ball back, and on that bad ankle, he's able to lead another game-winning drive, now 6-0 in overtime in his career. Now, the story of tonight offensively, of course, was Patrick Mahomes and the connection with DeAndre Hopkins. What did he think about both of their performances tonight?
Yeah, he's so good at winning one-on-one. And so to be able to have him down in the red zone, third down situations, he does a good job of filling out and finding those windows. He's kind of like Travis does. I think as he figures out the whole entire offense, he'll get even better because there's sometimes he's going places I'm like, man, there's a time and a place for that, but that's what makes him great. And then you give him a chance down the field and he makes a play. It goes from a play where it might have been a bad decision to a big-time catch. He ran the route similar to Travis, and as I scrambled up in the pocket, he kind of took off down the field, and I wanted to throw the ball a little bit harder. Obviously, getting hit, it kind of floated a little bit for me. But to have a guy like that can go up and make that catch in a crowd of defenders, is a special type of player. Yeah, I mean, you see it on tape, and, I mean, there's even more in the game I probably could have gave him chances for. But you have to know the time and the place to give him those chances. And I felt like there, we're kind of at the edge of full range, give him a chance down the field, let him make a play, and he did. And the more plays he makes, the more chances I give him, and that's kind of how you roll as you go along the season. Yeah, he's extremely intelligent, so we can talk about things on the sideline. He's seen a lot of different looks, and so we had talked about certain coverages and what we're going to do with him, and then obviously I had options on the other side as well, but they gave him the one-on-one option. We got to the check that we had talked about versus the coverage we had talked about, and he goes out there and makes a big-time catch. Yeah, during the week. We talked about that during the week. You obviously study tape. You see the different looks you can get in that certain situation. Obviously with the defense pushed over to kind of take Trav away for the most part. It's one-on-one on the backside. Then you look at the leverage of the guy and you get to the right check, and you let a guy win one-on-one.
8 for 86 and 2 touchdowns for DeAndre Hopkins in prime time. The first prime time game as a member of the Kansas City Chiefs. It appears that he and Patrick Mahomes are really on the same page. It did not take them long to get in sync, and they were phenomenal tonight. And they squandered, basically, Travis Kelce's 14 for 100 performance, which is ridiculous at his age. I mean, in human years, it's not that old to be 34, 35. When you're a football player and a tight end, yeah, 34, 35 is getting up there. But to go 14 for 100, that's pretty ridiculous from Travis Kelce. And for a 32-year-old DeAndre Hopkins, 8 for 86 and 2 touchdowns, even more impressive. Next question comes from our very own Todd Lebo, who was out there at Arrowhead Stadium. He had the chance to ask Patrick Mahomes about Kareem Hunt's performance tonight at Arrowhead.
Patrick, some of the guys in the locker room are gaining more and more respect for Kareem with what he's done home, not that long ago. But what's it been like for you to watch him get back into this and really excel?
Yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun to watch, man. I mean, he's come in the building since he's been here, and he's just got after it every single day. He works his tail off. He prepares himself for the moment, and then whenever we get down there in like fourth quarter and into games, he's going to make those runs 5 to 6 yards, 7 yards, whatever it is, and he's going to finish. And when you play that hard the entire game, it wears on the defense. And so I think that guys are proud of the way he's playing and the way he's coming about his business this year. He wants the football. I think that's the biggest thing is as the game goes on, it's like he starts feeling it and he starts going. And there's certain situations where I might have throws on the outside, and I'm like, man, I'm giving this guy the football, letting him go, because when he's running, even those 6-yard, 5-yard carries, that they take a toll on the defense.
I think just that run with Kareem Hunt to win the game, just what's running through your head when you see that and he scores, and obviously him coming back just alluded to that. But walk us through that play when he scores the game.
Yeah, I mean, a great run. I thought the offensive line did a great job all night, really. But they did a great job on that play and getting that push. And then Kareem, once you get the push, he's going to follow it in there and get in the end zone. And I'm happy for him to bounce back and come back here and then have this great start to the middle of the season here. Whenever we get Isaiah back, it's going to be a tough tandem for guys to tackle.
Yeah, I touched on that a little bit in the opening parts of the game. When the weather gets colder and teams are going to have to worry about tackling Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco, that just doesn't sound like fun at all. It was already hard enough to tackle Isaiah Pacheco when it's sub-zero temperatures. Now factor in Kareem Hunt, who was running over people tonight in the second half, including during that final drive in overtime. Now back to that injury. Here's what Patrick Mahomes had to say about that initial fear when it happened.
A lot of times when you hear non-contact injury or have a non-contact injury, that's pretty scary in itself. Was that part of what made you scared?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, whenever you do something and it's not, like you said, it's non-contact, you don't know exactly what happens, and you get that sharp pain. You always fear the worst. That's why I kind of sat there on the sideline for a second and just kind of took a breath. And as time went on, and I kind of realized it wasn't as bad as it looked or felt, I was able to kind of recuperate myself and get back on the football field.
Is there a way to describe what that pain feels like?
It's not good. That's the best way to describe it.
Yeah, not good. And then you factor in the bad field conditions because of the rain, and it was a close game, so you're having to run around a little bit. The offensive line had its struggles tonight, but toward the end of the game, they really started to dominate, especially there on the interior. Now, we glossed over Travis Kelce and his 14 catches for 100 yards, but Patrick Mahomes did not gloss over that. Here were his thoughts on his security blanket and his performance tonight against Tampa Bay.
Trav had a career-high 14 receptions. I mean, yet another thing he's never done in his career. What was working so well? Why were you guys in sync this game? And how has that grown as the season's kind of gone?
I didn't realize he had that many catches. Yeah, I mean, he does a great job of finding space, and I think with having DeAndre out there, it takes pressure off him where all the eyes are on him the entire time. And then I know it was out of bounds, but hitting the deep shot to Xavier down the field, and then being close from that one to J. Watt, it spreads the defense out, and you let guys like that work underneath. I'm almost positive he had a game with 16 receptions. I'm not in a playoff game though, but yeah, whenever he gets going, man, he's hard to stop.
Yes, he would be very hard to stop with all these weapons getting healthier. But even right now, it's that ability to just make himself open in those soft parts of the zone. That's what's so impressive all these years later with Travis Kelce. Just finding the soft spot of the zone. And to be targeted 16 times a night. It's ridiculous. Tampa Bay clearly was fine with him getting 5, 6, 7 yards every single catch. He didn't really burn them over the top at any point, but 14 catches. I mean, Tampa Bay really didn't care about him getting his number of targets and number of catches, but that is one ridiculous stat line for a guy like Travis Kelce, who, for the most part, this year has been pretty quiet. Only found the end zone once this year, but you have a performance like that, that'll be just fine. And now with DeAndre Hopkins really starting to come on strong and this team going to get healthier, maybe we can see more performances like this from Travis Kelce. And lastly, Mahomes had the chance to talk about the wet field conditions and what that was like playing on a rainy night at Arrowhead Stadium.
Yeah, I mean, well, first off, I pride myself on being able to throw in any condition. I think that's something that's an advantage at Arrowhead. And so if it's raining, if it's snowing, if it's cold, if it's hot, whatever it is, I want to be the best thrower of the football on the football field. And I think that's why we want home field advantage. That's why we want the playoffs to come through Arrowhead, because it's a special place and you have to be able to play in every environment. And then as far as what was the second question again one more time?
You have the ankle injury in 2022 in the postseason. How much does that inform you about how to operate when you are dealing with pain and obviously a re-aggravation?
Yeah, I know in a sense it hurts you. I mean, obviously it hurts your ankle injury, but sometimes it almost settles me down, especially in the pocket, where I can't use my mobility. So I feel like early in the game I was running into sacks because they were doing good in their pass rush lanes, and it kind of settled me in the pocket. And then when our offensive line is blocking like that, I can sit in the pocket, go through my reads, and get to the right guy. And I mean, what gets lost in the way we played throughout this entire beginning of this season is how good that offensive line's playing, running the football and pass protecting, and that's what's going to carry us into this run that we want to go on.
Thank you.
Pat, did you give Brad a hard time about Jack somewhere?
I'm not Pikachu still got big one this week.
And that was Patrick Mahomes after the 30-24 victory in overtime against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. All right, we are going to take another break right here on the Red and Gold Postgame Show, which is brought to you by Boda Wine. Kick your tailgate party up a notch this football season with Boda, the ultimate tailgate wine. Boda is the premium boxed wine that wins with wine critics. Boda, this is how we Boda. Please drink responsibly. Sponsored by Boda Vineyards, Manteca, California. When we come back, we're going to hear from Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com. He's on deck on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Expertise, services, and solutions to help your business grow. You can also make the right choice today by going to choicesolutions.com. And you are tuned into the Red and Gold Postgame Show, brought to you by Boda Box Wine. And now it's time to hop back on the phone line and talk with our guy, Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com. And he's brought to you by Cap One Lending. The Freedom Loan at Cap One Lending is the exclusive loan that helps you pay your home off in less than half the time and gives you access to your home's equity without having to refinance. Go to CapOneLending.com. Well, Matt, it was another thrilling game at Arrowhead Stadium. The Chiefs winning this one 30-24. And the story of tonight's game, there really could be a couple different ones. You could go with Travis Kelce, DeAndre Hopkins, or Kareem Hunt. So of those three, Matt, who do you think stole the show tonight at Arrowhead Stadium?
No, you're right, Jack. I mean, you really could go with any of them. But I got to go with DeAndre Hopkins. If for no other reason than dude hasn't even been in town yet for 2 weeks and 2 touchdowns, a season high, 86 yards tonight. That's just absolutely incredible to me. And his mere presence on the field, I mean, enabled Travis Kelce to have the night that he did. So Travis Kelce had, first 100-yard game for him this season. I don't think that happens. And 14 catches, don't think that happens without DeAndre Hopkins being out there. That addition by Brett Veach when they needed it, I mean, I don't know if there's another player in the league that could have brought the Chiefs what exactly the spark that they needed in that receiver room, like the way that DeAndre has. And it just makes you wonder what the future is, Jack. I mean, I thought this was a really impressive night for all of them, but especially for Hopkins.
Yeah, it's the three guys that are up there in age for the most part that really were the stars for this Chiefs offense. But another part, maybe more so negative, in fact, it was the negative part of this game, was on a touchdown pass by Patrick Mahomes, who in my opinion had his most complete individual performance tonight. He goes down with a non-contact injury, and everybody in Kansas City is holding their breath because from his reaction, it certainly didn't look very good. So what was going through your mind when Patrick Mahomes fell down in the heap after his touchdown pass to Samaje Perine?
The only thing that felt anywhere even possibly good about it, Jack, was that he didn't have the classic, just legs out in front of him Achilles stance that you get when players have blown out their Achilles. Because that was the first thing I thought, was that that's the possibility, just the way that his ankle just kind of moved in a weird way. But him describing it afterwards, I mean, makes total sense. I mean, because he did kind of step awkwardly when he made that decision to stop running for the end zone and instead throw it. I mean, I think we've all been there before, when we kind of make a decision about changing which way we're going to go and just you stumble. Well, it's a lot trickier even when you're a professional athlete. I mean, especially on that wet turf tonight, I'm sure that didn't help either. But then when he was getting helped off the field, I mean, that looked even worse. But then halfway across the field, he's like, no, I can walk on my own power. And that was at least the first good sign. But I don't blame any Chiefs fans because I think that happened during the commercial break. So if you didn't get to see it live, I imagine that commercial break for Chiefs fans was just absolutely excruciating.
Now, 34 for 44 for Patrick Mahomes tonight, 3 touchdowns, no picks, and a quarterback rating of 116.8. Is tonight the start of a great run for Patrick Mahomes, or was this more so about him being able to carve up what's been a pretty bad defense for Tampa Bay?
Well, it could be both, but, we've been talking about it in the postgame shows in the last couple of weeks, really going back to the second half of the Chargers game. I've felt like we've continued to see Mahomes get better and better and more comfortable week by week. And it's not the greatest show on turf that this offense once was, and the numbers were affected a little bit tonight by a couple of big negative plays. But 4.6 yards a play isn't explosive, but it's just a new way that this offense is winning football games. And if they're winning, you're not going to complain about it. But it's just different for this team. But I feel like that the stretch that Mahomes has been on, he had a couple of the turnovers in the last few games that really weren't his fault. I mean, it was a little bit more, being on the receivers or just some bad situations. But tonight, clean game, no turnovers, 3 touchdowns, really best numbers and performance across the board that we've seen from him all season. It's once again, I mean, it's kind of a catch-22. I mean, the fact that they've got DeAndre Hopkins here now, it makes everybody's life easier, and it's certainly making Patrick Mahomes' life easier.
Now, Brett Veach already went out there and helped this offense out a lot by bringing in DeAndre Hopkins. But for tomorrow, with the trade deadline, Matt, do you get the feeling that the Chiefs are not done and they can go out there and make a move? And if they do make a move, what do you think it could be for?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be tight because I think that the one thing that they want is it's just the one thing that doesn't appear to be available. They want cornerback help. But they're not really looking for just somebody to come in to be the fifth or sixth corner. They'd like for somebody who could be coming in, maybe be the second or third corner, especially with the injuries that they've got right now. And that player, it's just questionable about whether or not that they're available. There might be some names that could be possible, but it requires those teams feeling that, since yesterday when most of the teams played, the last 24 hours, that maybe they've decided that they're no longer in the race. And, we've heard, there's been some connection with the Chiefs and Lattimore in New Orleans, and, that could work out. But again, it's one of those logistic things that we talked about, all of the different criteria that were going to have to be met with the Chiefs were going to bring in a wide receiver. There's some of the same criteria at corner, in the fact that they don't want it to be somebody who comes in is going to be disruptive to the chemistry of that locker room. It's got to be somebody that's cheap from a base salary standpoint. It's got to be somebody that's not going to require a first or a second-day draft pick, because the Chiefs just don't want to give up those first, second, and third-round picks for 25. If you want a 26 draft pick, maybe you could talk, but I think the Chiefs would prefer not to give up anything worse than a fourth. So there's some difficulties as far as getting anything done. But they've addressed running back, they've addressed wide receiver, they've addressed defensive end. The only thing that they haven't ticked off yet is cornerback. And I think the only thing that's stopping them, really, Jack, is just supply and demand. I'm just not sure that the supply that the Chiefs demand is out there.
We're talking with Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com after the Chiefs' 30-24 win over Tampa Bay. I think we saw this early on in the game, Matt. I'm not really sure how it stopped or when it stopped, but Wanya Morris and Kingsley Suamataia rotating a little bit at left tackle. What's going on there? Was this a plan all week long, or is this still an ongoing position battle for the left tackle spot in Kansas City?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure if what it was, and I didn't get a chance, unfortunately, to talk to Wanya or Kingsley after the game, and so I'm kind of I haven't seen if there's any insight into it yet. I know I don't think it was related. I mean, a lot of it happened after that Wanya was an eligible receiver, and I'm not aware of any rule that would have required him to come out in those situations. So I'm almost wondering if it was like an equipment thing that, maybe Wanya, maybe he's got some gear on him. I don't know. When he's an eligible receiver, I don't know what it is. But that was a bit curious. But all of them happened in several of those moments where they moved, where Kingsley came in and was playing at least tackle, and Wanya was on the end and therefore an eligible receiver. It was curious, and maybe it was just a way for the Chiefs to kind of work Kingsley in a little bit and give him a couple of snaps to, maybe get things going a little bit. Maybe there's a method to the madness that Andy Reid and Andy Heck have lined up. Hopefully we can find out this week, but I'm as perplexed as you are, Jack.
Last couple questions for you here, Matt. I do want to jump over the defensive side of the ball. Kind of an uncharacteristic performance for this Chiefs defense led by Steve Spagnuolo. There was a drive that could have, I guess, lost them the game at the very end, but Todd Bowles elects to kick the PAT and try for overtime. But still, it was a defense that gave up 24 points, and they hadn't given up more than 20 points in a game since Week 2 against Cincinnati. So what did you see tonight against the Tampa Bay offense that was down their two best weapons in Chris Godwin and Mike Evans?
Yeah, kind of a mixed bag to me because, yes, I think, you would prefer not to give up 24 points to an offense that's down two of their biggest weapons. You feel good about the fact that, Baker Mayfield, after having a really nice game last week against Atlanta, with both those guys out, this week. Hold them to 200 yards. That's great. The 24 points, not ideal, and I'm still perplexed a little bit about the last drive because I thought the Chiefs defense, and this wasn't, I'm not talking about from a mentality standpoint, I'm just talking about from a play calling standpoint. I thought they played it pretty passively. It was really, almost a prevent defense most of the way. And I certainly got the indication that they were just trying to force the Bucs to go downfield in small chunks and certainly not be able to give up the big play. Didn't want to give up the big touchdown, but Sterling Shepard had a couple of incredible catches that moved the chains and got them some chunk yardage. That probably changes the equation a little bit there. But, does Steve Spagnuolo change his mind next time, in that situation that maybe do they play a little bit more aggressively with, they had 3 down linemen at the beginning of that drive. Do they next time around put 4 defensive linemen in there and go after the quarterback a little bit more? Hard to say, but their plan didn't work out. I mean, they certainly were trying to play a lot of zone there and just make it more difficult for the Buccaneers to go down in chunks, and yet Mayfield was able to do it, and that kind of torpedoed their plan. Hey, I saw that Todd Bowles said that the weather conditions really kept him from going for 2 there, and I kind of get that. You don't want your chance at winning a game to just be decided because a guy slips on one particular play. So I kind of get that. But, this was a game that the Chiefs, easily could have lost. And not even that. I mean, there was some other opportunities throughout the game both teams had that, the ball goes a different way. The Buccaneers execute a couple of different times. Maybe they do end up escaping with this win. It was obviously it's an overtime game. It was a close one. It could have gone either way.
And last question for you here, Matt. Let's say they do go for 2. What do you think would have happened? Even with the conditions here, it was a Chiefs defense that had really just been beaten up on that final drive. Would the Buccaneers have the play call to win that game? Or do you think even if they got that 2-point conversion, the Chiefs would have gone down and kicked a field goal? How do you think that would have really shaken out if Todd Bowles and Baker Mayfield decided, hey, we've got the crosshairs on them right now, let's go for the kill shot?
I mean, I would have bet on the Chiefs defense if for no other reason than in that particular situation, hey, it would have been the 49ers converting on one short yardage play. Chances of them converting on back-to-back short yardage plays against this Chiefs defense, I just don't think are very good. I know in the charts that's a 50-50. It's a coach's decision, and so I don't think this was black and white by any stretch of the imagination. I think it was a lot closer call than a lot of people realize, even by the analytics, as they say. I think I would have bet on Steve Spagnuolo and the defense on the second try, though.
All right. Well, Matt, appreciate your time as always, and we'll talk to you this Sunday.
Sounds great, Jack. Take care, my friend.
There he goes. That's our guy, Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com. We'll take a break, come back, and have our locker room report right here on the Red and Gold Postgame Show on Sports Radio 810 WHB. And for the second time on the night, the Chiefs gave DeAndre Hopkins the green light, which is brought to you. Official sponsor of Kansas City's favorite football team. Look for the Green Light Stadium flyover banners at your favorite games this fall. GreenlightDispensary.com. There are two Chiefs that we want to hear from in the locker room. Our very own Steven St. John was there. You can hear from him in about, 5 hours and 24 minutes on A New Day with SSJ. He'll have tons to recap in the Chiefs' 30-24 victory over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in overtime. They move to a perfect 8-0 with the Denver Broncos looming this Sunday. I was about to say next week, though that's not the case. It'll be a short week for Kansas City, and they'll welcome Denver for the first and only time this year, and they'll see the Broncos later on in the year at Mile High. I want to say that is the final regular season game of the season. But Bo Nix, Sean Payton, and Denver will be at Arrowhead as the Chiefs will try to go to 9-0. First guy I want to hear from for our locker report is the newly acquired Kansas City Chief in Josh Uche. He was out there for multiple third downs, did have a chase down tackle that I saw. I want to say that was right before halftime, but got maybe a little bit more run than at least I was expecting, maybe that you were expecting. But here were his thoughts after his first game with Kansas City.
How were things for you out there first night on the job here?
Man, it's amazing to be a part of this, to be a part of Chiefs Kingdom. Did everything I could, and there's definitely things to improve on. But hey, week in and week out, we're just trying to get better. So.
How comfortable did you feel the defense out there?
I mean, the guys did a great job of helping me kind of sink into everything. Of course, there's some things I could be better at and I can improve on, but day by day, Rome wasn't built in a day. So.
Were you surprised they didn't go for two there at the end when they tied it up, I guess?
Honestly, I was so focused on, getting back on the field, whatever the scenario was. I mean, I was just focusing on what defense had to do if it came down to
it. 8-0 team. You go from 2-7 to 8-0. Huh?
Yeah.
How's that feel?
Hey, man, someone says they don't believe in God, they're lying. So, I mean, you wake up one morning, you're 8-0. It's crazy. And just trying to embrace it. And, again, understanding it doesn't come easy. It wasn't given, and it's hard work. So, getting back to the drawing boards and on to the next opponent. So.
How comfortable were you out there, just having been here for as little time as you have?
Yeah, it felt good just getting back on the turf, man. Just getting my feet back under me. And, again, like I said, there's things I got to improve on and I got to be better on. But it just felt good to be back out there.
How much of a challenge was that offense? Baker Mayfield and Kate Otten, those guys were down with a bunch of injuries, but just didn't seem to ever give up.
Yeah, they play with a great rhythm and a great – they play in sync, so as a defense, we just did everything we could to combat that. But they do a great job of playing on rhythm.
Was the rain or the field conditions a factor at all for you? Did that bother you at all?
I mean, when you're out there, you don't think about that stuff. You just think about doing your job. So.
Somebody asked you earlier, undefeated, 8-0. I mean, it's kind of been a whirlwind for you, but what's going through your mind when you go on the field, you see that crowd, Monday Night Football, and you're finally with your new team?
I'm just worrying about my job, my 111. What am I doing on this specific play at the moment? Everything else kind of just fades away, and I'm just worried about doing my job, making a play. So.
Is there any difference between being in Pittsburgh at Arrowhead before and this time being on the other side?
Yeah, I've never played at Arrowhead, actually. When New England played back in, I believe it was 2020, I wasn't here. I didn't travel, so it's my first experience at Arrowhead. So. I mean, it's crazy. It's like a college atmosphere, man. It's loud. Then the cannons go off and all that stuff. It's pretty cool.
And that was new Kansas City Chief member Josh Uche after his first game at Arrowhead Stadium. His first game as a Chief, period. Did get a lot of snaps there on third down. Other guy I want to hear from is Justin Watson, who had a couple of big catches. And if it wasn't for DeAndre Hopkins and Travis Kelce stealing the show in the receiving game, we would probably be talking a little bit more about Justin Watson and his performance tonight. But here were his thoughts after a 30-24 victory over Tampa Bay.
You guys won this game. You guys last lost Christmas of last year. We're past Halloween here in November this year. How long can this thing go here?
Yeah, I mean, we're done thinking about the past. We're just 1-0 each week, trying to get better, and we got a lot of things to clean up that we can even improve more.
Just how much do you guys feel like a chameleon on offense? Like, okay, the conditions are a certain way. If past dealing with an ankle injury, you guys can sort of transform into smash mouth. I guess, is that accurate? And what does that feel like when you know you have to sort of make a change in the middle of the game?
Yeah, I think we just always talk about accepting the challenge. You know, in training camp and in the hard days of OTAs, and especially in the season, just accept the challenge. Pat goes down, it's raining, they know we're going to run the ball. We talk about all the time, let's run the ball when we know that the other team knows we're running it. So it's cool to see that, and then some big plays on third down, passing the ball, Pat come back, tough it out for us in the third and fourth quarter. So, man, it was just a good team win.
Is this the most you felt open this season, considering how much either Tampa was playing zone and obviously having the attention of Hopkins and obviously Travis?
Yeah, I think there were some holes in their zone defense. They were trying to get tricky with some rushes up front and did a good job there. So I think it was cool to see Pat just on the same page with a lot of our receivers. That some of those balls were out before any of our eyes were even around, and they were right on the money. So that's just a sign of good quarterback wide receiver relationship there.
After the night that D-Hop had, how much do you think that's going to open up the offense for the rest of the receivers and everyone else? Because now everyone's going to be focused on D-Hop after tonight.
Yeah, I think it's just pick your poison. If you want to try to double Trav or D-Hop, we'll run the ball with Kareem. So I think we've just shown that there's a lot of guys that we can tap when it's somebody's turn to make a play, but they step up and make it.
I know you don't play defense, but were you surprised they didn't go for two there at the end? What were you thinking?
I was just glad that we were going to get a chance. We're pretty good on the coin toss and overtime, so it was good to get away in the coin toss. And then once we had the ball in our hands, we were just thinking about finishing it.
How much of a factor was the rain, was the weather, the field, anything?
We're professionals. That's what we do. We're professional receivers and pass catchers, so that's just our job to go out there and catch the ball no matter what the conditions are.
Thank you.
And that was our very own Stephen St. John at A New Day with SSJ coming your way in about 5 hours and 18 minutes. But there he was at the very end of that conversation with Justin Watson. We'll take our final break of the show on the Red and Gold Postgame Show. When we come back, we will wrap up this 30-24 win over Tampa Bay as the Chiefs move to 8-0. You were tuned in to Sports Radio 810 WHB. Visit your local Westlake Ace Hardware store or www.westlakehardware.com/commercial today. And before we had hit our break, we had our locker room report brought to you by Twin Peaks. And if you missed any of it, you can always check it out on our podcast page. But that was our very own locker room report brought to you by Twin Peaks.
The Chiefs Locker Room Report is brought to you by Twin Peaks. No one does football like Twin Peaks. Whatever your preference, they have everything from tequila cocktails and an extensive bourbon category to top shelf spirits and cocktails served over ice balls. Local craft beers and handcrafted whiskey cocktails round out an adventurous drink menu, second to none. And don't forget about their 29-degree man-sized drafts at Twin Peaks.
DeAndre Hopkins, Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, Kareem Hunt, Samaje Perine if you want, George Karlaftis, Chris Jones, Nick Bolton. There's a lot of guys that had a big hand in a 30-24 victory over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in overtime. A walk-off touchdown by Kareem Hunt, who, by the way, said he had not had a game-winning touchdown since Pee Wee. No, I'll take his word for it. But the Chiefs are now a perfect 8-0, still an unblemished record, and they will take their 8-0 record into this Sunday against the Denver Broncos, their first meeting with Bo Nix and Sean Payton this year, a noon kickoff. And as always, we'll have you covered right after the game on the Red and Gold Postgame Show. But until Sunday afternoon, you can take it easy, Kansas City.